Family, I'm live. I don't know how many people I'm gonna get in here right off the bat, but I want to start out by saying, I hope everyone is having a good weekend, staying safe and having you know, um being productive, with your time and things like that, and having a good weekend. So yeah, I came on here a little bit later than what I'm trying to, but it's hard to get all these stories, family, that I gotta get, gathered up behind the scenes, and check out everything, make sure I got the videos and things, that I want to talk about, but first off, I ain't gonna waste too much time. Like I said, I hope everybody's having a good weekend, staying safe and enjoying themselves. But I want to shout out. I got a cash app. I don't check my cash app too often, but I got a cash app from one of our FBA brothers, Carl Miller out of Cleveland, Ohio. So I want to salute to our brother because I don't want to like I'm not interested, because I like to when I get donations things shout the family out, you know what I mean. But I just ain't been on there, the Cash App for a while. So shout out and salute to our brother Carl Miller, FBA brother from Cleveland, Ohio, and big shout out and salute to Cleveland, Ohio. But something I want to get into, family, before we get started is I got peace to the chat, peace to FBA Convo, and peace to my sister Black Love, and peace to the sister Rainy Fall 62-8, and shout out to the DMV. But yeah, family, something I want to get into before we get right into what we're going to be talking about. I got a lot of videos and things I want to discuss today. But first thing I want to get into, family, is if any of the families interested, I hope y'all can see this. I got FBA t-shirts now, so y'all can represent, the lineage, while you out and about, So yeah, I got these FBA t-shirts now, family, and they going for I got a limited amount, family. I'm just trying it out to see how everything works out, if I could even get rid of them, So I got a limited number. I only got about, 10 t-shirts, and I'm selling them at $25, and that'll cover your shipping and everything, you know what I mean? And the sizes I got like one small, I got two extra larges, and I got four larges, and I got two double XLs. So if you're interested, family, all of the details is in the bio, in the description of this live stream, So yeah, hit up my email and hit my Cash App, and be sure to put all the sizes and things like that you need, in the email and where it's being shipped to, and I'll get that right out to you. But family, make sure you get the shirt sizings, right, and things like that, because once you buy the shirt, you got them. I ain't doing no refunds. You know what I mean? So yeah, once you buy the shirt, make sure it's like what you need, the sizes and everything is true, right, and exact. So I just wanted, to put that out that I got these FBA t-shirts on the market now, family, and I only got a few of them. So, get them while the getting is good, but peace to the family, and we going to get right into, the topics we wanted to, I'm going to be discussing. Let me flip my camera because I just had it this way to be able to show y'all the t-shirt with the FBA flag, the beautiful FBA flag on it. So yeah, family, I had to switch my camera. So give me a second to pull these videos up. Bear with me. Peace to my family, we the people. And salute to Astral Gray, who says B1. B1 FBA salute, family. We the people. All I got is this one color. It's just a trial run on these t-shirts just to see how it goes. And if any of the families interested on the tees, just everything you need to for like hit up my email, and everything is in the description of this video to where you can get the t-shirts, this, that, and the other. But yeah, I want to get right into it, family. I ain't gonna waste too much time. And first thing we're gonna be talking about is this white supremacist Trump. And yeah, Trump is a white supremacist, family. You know what I mean? I don't like either party. What I'm about first and foremost is FBA empowerment. Now Trump and his administration is calling for $2 billion, for this war, this, that, and the other. Now they got all of this money, magically falls out of thin air whenever they needed to fight wars and things. But when we as foundational Black Americans, when we ask for our reparations, oh, we don't got it. It ain't in the budget. We got to study it, this, that, and the other, all of which are stall tactics. They got the damn money. The U.S. government, got the money. It's just that, they don't want us foundational Black Americans to get our reparations, which we going to get because they know when we get our reparations, we're going to be in a power position to where though we're going to be making and creating things, employing our own people and doing business with our own people. But Trump ain't nothing but a white supremacist. I ain't surprised by this, war, with Iran, that they got going on. I ain't surprised by it one bit because that's what a white supremacist does, go around creating wars, starting things. And, we got enough of problems going on over here in America. We need to be focused on American people. The prices of everything is through the roof, and yet they got money to fight wars. I think that truth be told, we in a recession. You see some of these prices, you go to the store, you go to the store with $100 and barely come out with a bag of groceries, so everything is sky high and through the roof. Yet, they trying to make a war, you know what I mean? And that's a bunch of nonsense, and that's what white supremacy does, go around starting wars, you know what I mean? America got enough problems, and the one big problem America got is, America always puts her nose into other people's business and issues. We got to focus on ourselves. Israel got a problem going on with them, so we automatically got to jump in, you know what I mean, to be the defender of everybody. That's one thing I don't like about, America. Even though I'm for my country, sometimes you got to stand on business, and you may have to fight a war here and there, but just fighting unnecessary wars, I ain't with that. You got these troops now that's going to be deployed over there, and they going to tell them, it's defending democracy. They going to make up some bogus excuse when it's all to go over there and extract oil and resources from that country, and we got a lot of, people, thanks to the Democrats, that are over here in the country, and we don't know who we got over here. We can have sleeper cells, you know what I mean, to attack us from within. So I got the audio and the video of, this nonsense to where though Trump administration is calling for $2 billion, to fight this war, of which we don't even need to be fighting. They go around making and creating problems, you know what I mean, and putting their nose in other people's affairs and issues, when we should be worried about and focused on in-house. We got enough of problems, you know what I mean? But let's get into it, family. Fair use. Peace to my brother, Black RU365. And shout out to my sister, Black Love.
CBS's Weijia Jiang joins us now from the White House. Weijia, you heard the conversation here. Please add to it based on what the president said, and he said quite a few things today in the Oval Office.
He did, Major, so I'll pick up where Aaron left off about this issue of boots on the ground, because as we know, that would be required to remove any of that enriched uranium.
And starting wars, it takes money to fund wars. You know what I mean? That's going to drive the prices even more through the roof. The prices on gas, this, that, and the other, which is a bunch of nonsense.
That is at the core of the nuclear capabilities that we're talking about. And the president was asked explicitly today.
Shout out to my brother Harlem World Media.
Whether he plans to put boots on the ground. And he said, no, I'm not putting troops anywhere. He also said, if I decided to, I wouldn't tell you, but no, I'm not doing that. So it seems as of now, he says he doesn't have plans to do that. The president also talked about this $200 billion supplemental request from the Pentagon to Congress to continue funding the war. We have heard from both Democrats and Republicans their hesitancy to even engage on that huge of a number, which, by the way, is more than all the funding that the U.S. has provided to the war.
And like I said, family, damn the Democrats and the Republicans, because every time we ask for reparations, well, we demand for reparations, rather, as foundational Black Americans, oh, we got to study it, this, that, and the other, you know what I mean? We ain't got enough money, it's going to ruin the American economy, the sun's going to fall out of the sky. All of these damn unreasonable things is going to happen when it comes to foundational Black Americans getting our justice claim in the form of cash reparations, which is a dead old. Yet to fund wars, they got endless amounts of money. You got people, sick, starving, and injured over here, and, homeless over here in America. They ain't worried about no damn American citizens, and I'm all for my country, but, just getting involved in unnecessary wars, Trump is just doing what a white supremacist does, just go around causing, wars and creating confusion, havoc, and, and we become, the burden bearers as the American citizens to all of this nonsense that's going on
in Ukraine. And today in the Oval Office, I was in there, Major, and the president spoke again extensively about how the U.S. has obliterated the Iranian military capability. He also said that he thought the war would be wrapped up soon. So I asked him if that was the case, why the Pentagon still needed hundreds of billions of dollars. Here's what he said.
If the war is almost over, why is the Pentagon going to ask Congress for an additional $200 billion?
Well, we're asking for a lot of reasons beyond even what we're talking about in Iran. This is a very...
Trump a damn devil, and that's what a devil does, going around, creating wars, confusion, mayhem, you know what I mean? This is right up his alley. So I ain't surprised by this one bit, but it's a damn shame, the American citizens, we got to pay for this nonsense.
Volatile world, and the military equipment, the power of some of this weaponry is unthinkable.
Shout out to my sister Donna C.
You don't even want to know about it. Oh, you could end this thing in 2 seconds if you wanted to, but we are being very judicious. What we want to do, don't forget, Biden gave away. I rebuilt the military.
This is why I don't vote, family, and I wish, all of our foundational Black American brothers and sisters get this, you know what I mean? Because both of the Democrats and the Republicans, they turn a blind eye to us when we demand for, our justice claim in the form of cash reparations. So damn either party. What we got to be about is foundational Black American empowerment. And through foundational Black American empowerment, creating our own businesses and opportunities for ourselves, this will help us get our leg up, you know what I mean? Because neither of these damn, political parties want to see us empowered, even though I believe we're going to get our, I wholeheartedly believe we're going to get our, justice claim in the form of cash reparations, because we just too, hell bent on it right now, as we should be. But, neither of these two political parties want to empower us. They just use stall tactics, and playing the game of benign neglect with us foundational Black Americans. Damn that.
Military my first time. Biden gave away so stupidly to Afghanistan a lot.
And see, they just point the finger at one another, the Democrats and the Republicans. They get up and tell a whole bunch of lies. Trump was saying he going, do this, that, and the other for American people, and, fighting wars, that ain't nothing to do with U.S. citizens. That's hurting U.S. citizens, because that's going to drive the cost up at the grocery store, gas, this, that, and the other, housing. Wars, drive prices up in society, and we already got prices in society now that's buku high and through the roof. So we don't need this. It's a bunch of nonsense.
He didn't want to move it. He was too lazy, too stupid to move it. But it was a very small amount. It was a lot, but it was very small relative to what I purchased and what I built. We want to have vast amounts of ammunition, which we have right now. We have a lot of ammunition, but it was taken down by...
See, white supremacists such as Donald Trump don't know how to settle disputes, without using, violent means. They get off on violent means, and that's the definition of a white supremacist, going throughout the world, wreaking havoc on individuals, you know what I mean, and creating problems that got nothing to do with us, you know what I mean? But yeah, I just wanted to touch on that. Trump talking a bunch of BS, but we're going to stay, focusing in on Trump, and now, as many of the family might know or not know, Trump is also talking about going in there, and taking Cuba. And I don't stand with that. He's talking about taking Cuba. I can go in there and have my way with him, basically saying he could slap them around if he wants, they weaken this, that, and the other. And I believe, that Trump is only trying to, take Cuba over, because if any of the family remembers, I covered this on my channel. Y'all can go back and look at the videos. Cuba, was looking out for our FBA sister, Shada Shakur, and the Republican Party, just about 5 months ago, they was, trying to get her back and, hold her to, some kind of judgment and punishment over here in the U.S. You know what I mean? And, this is why I say I don't play either party. I'm for whoever is going to produce something for FBAs. Damn a party, I'm for FBA empowerment first, but I ain't for the Democrats or the Republicans. But, the Democrats, they were holding our sister Shada down. You know what I mean? Even that mayor up there in Chicago, which I don't rock with him, that don't erase all of the negative things he's done, flooding his own with all of these damn, illegal immigrants and things like that up there in Chicago, which hurts, harms, and injures FBA brothers and sisters. But he stood on business and he was saying, nah, we're not going to, I can't, because they was trying to get him basically. I got the video of that on my channel, denounce Assata Shakur, you know what I mean? So they can go in there and, hammer up and, put her in jail, and the Democrats wasn't with it, you know what I mean? But that's why I think, that Trump is trying to get some retaliation on the Democrats in Cuba because they, was rocking with our FBA sister Assata Shakur. So I'm gonna get y'all the audio and the video of, where the mayor, and I rock with him on this aspect, but that don't cancel out. That's not to say it cancels out all of the negative things he's doing, flooding the zone with all of these damn illegal undocumented immigrants up there in Chicago, which is hurt, harming, and injuring FBA brothers and sisters. So that's not to say I rock with that. I just, rock with the aspect of looking out and not denouncing our FBA sister, Assata Shakur. So let me pull that up, family. Bear with me. Here we go, family. See, we come with the receipts on everything. We don't deal in emotion. We deal on, facts and logic. So here we go. I got it. And two things can exist and be true at the end of the day. While I don't rock with the Democrats, like I said, I don't rock with Mayor Brendan Johnson as a whole. I just rock with this aspect of looking out for our FBA sister, Assata Shakur. Fair use.
Assata Shakur is an important person in the Black liberation movement who has repeatedly claimed her innocence and that.
And see, they trying to get him right now to. This was just before FBA sister Assata Shakur passed. They was trying to get Mayor Brendan Johnson, along with the Democrats, to denounce our FBA sister Assata Shakur. And Mayor Brendan Johnson up there in Chicago, in this particular aspect, he stood all the way on business.
She was.
Apparently,
Yeah, family, I just wanted to show y'all that. I'm not going to let this sister talk. I just wanted to show y'all he wouldn't denounce our FBA sister Assata Shakur. You know what I mean? And that's why I feel that, Trump is trying to wage this, takeover of Cuba, as a slap in the face to the Democrats, for them not, rocking with him on, trying to bring her back, But let me pull up some other videos. Bear with me on Trump, family. Here we go. Fair use, fair use.
Their indication today, the war in Iran isn't ending anytime soon. Pentagon officials have made detailed preparations for deploying U.S. ground forces into Iran. Multiple sources briefed on the discussions tell CBS News senior military commanders have submitted specific requests aimed at preparing for such an option. All of this shows yet again the Pentagon continues to expand military options available to the president, even if he publicly declined to discuss next steps.
No, I'm not putting troops anywhere.
Trump a goddamn devil. I don't believe nothing that come out of a devil mouth. Only thing they going to do is lie and deceive.
If I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you.
Whatever options the president's considering, we know this. Thousands of Marines are en route to the Middle East. 3 warships and about 2,200 Marines from an expeditionary unit left California this week, the second such Marine unit sent towards the region since the war began. Those are signals the war isn't ending soon. There's also what the president said just a short time ago on his way down to Florida.
I don't want to do a ceasefire. You don't do a ceasefire when you're literally obliterating the other side.
See what he says? He only focused on, getting people about the paint, causing mayhem, havoc, and destruction, and that's what white supremacists do, going all throughout the world, conquering, pillaging things, causing havoc and dismay. I don't rock with Donald Trump. He's hell-bent on control, and trying to, putting his nose into affairs that don't, concern us American people. You got American people over here that's sick, starving, and injured. You know what I mean? Homeless FBA brothers and sisters, and they'll just turn a blind eye to that and ignore, our justice claim, which is a debt owed in the form of cash reparations. And, they getting all of this, they got all this money to magically fight this war. But where's our money as foundational Black Americans? Yeah, damn that. They can miss me.
So we begin tonight with CBS's Charlie D'Agata, who is once again in Tel Aviv for us tonight. Charlie, good to see you. What about, or what more do we know about the administration preparing for the potential deployment of ground troops?
Yeah, good evening, Ed, or good afternoon, Ed, for you. So as you said, sources told CBS News tonight, or this afternoon.
Sister Black Love, I believe he's harassing Cuba now, devil Donald Trump, is because the reason I believe he's harassing Cuba now is because they stalled our FBA sister, Asada Shakur out. She got to live out her years in the free and the clear, and they wouldn't give her back over to the US, you know what I mean? And when you black in a system of racism, white supremacy, and a white supremacist says that you done something, true or not true, you supposed to face some judgment for that. You're supposed to be locked up. And with our sister Asada Shakur, escaping imprisonment, that's seen as giving this the middle finger to the system of racism, white supremacy, and they don't like that one bit, because when you black and a white supremacist said you done something, it don't even got to be true. They just want you held accountable for it. So now that Donald Trump is trying to wage war on Cuba, saying that he's gonna go in there and take Cuba, rather, this, that, and the other, smack them around, that's because they stalled our FBA sister Asada Shakur out. They held her, and held her down.
War this afternoon, the Pentagon officials. This is where the preparation comes in, the planning comes in for preparing to deploy ground forces. Senior military commanders have made specific requests aimed at preparing for that option should President Trump decide to do so. As you said, there's another 2,200 Marines that have already set sail from California. So they're on board the USS Boxer amphibious ship that I confirmed.
And all of them troops being deployed, family, all of the guns and ammunition they buying, somebody paying for it. And we, the American citizens, are paying for it. And I think, what they ain't saying now, truth be told, is that we in a recession. Look at some of the prices when you go out. Things are through the roof, gas, food, even housing. They raising rent, the cost of rent left and right. So he should be focused on that instead of, playing the savior, going over there and fighting Israel's war. America, that's a bad thing that America always does. They got a bad habit of, even though I stand by my country when it's right, but when they wrong, they wrong. You know what I mean? They got a bad habit of going over there, poking their nose into other people's business and affairs. Let other people stand on their own and fight their own battles. We got enough going on over here, on American soil.
Today, they're already on the way here, already on the way from the South Pacific with another 2,200 Marines on board.
Shout out to my FBA sister, Tawanda.
Is the Tripoli amphibious from the South Pacific. Technically, they qualify as ground troops if that is what's decided. But in addition, and this is important, they're also preparing the 82nd Airborne Division. Okay, so these are combat-ready troops. Where? We've already discussed Harg Island, that military oil hub that was bombed by the United States.
See, that's what it's all about, going in there, extracting resources and things like that, from these other countries. Then they tell American troops they going over there, tell them a lie, they going over there to defend democracy, this, that, and the other, but in all actuality, they going over there to steal from these other countries, steal this, that, and the other, so I don't, rock with that. Somebody got to be, the burden bearers, for all of this war. And it, we got to be the burden bearers as American tax-paying citizens. Taxes is going to go through the roof. It's going to drive the economy high, and it's already, high through the roof. The prices on some things, they making the cost of living, unbearable for certain people that's just trying to make it get by and support a family. So damn that, and damn Trump, he's doing what a white supremacist does, creating war and confusion.
A few days ago, securing that island would give some leverage, a toehold in trying to break Iran's stranglehold of the Strait of Hormuz. But that's just one of several.
And the big thing, we got to watch this, family, because we might have, thanks to the Democrats, a lot of people in here that over here in America that are sleeper cells, that's trying to get some get back on us from within, and you can see an enemy coming, when they outside, an enemy outside of the house. But when your enemy is inside the house with you, it's hard to see that, so we got to keep our eyes on that aspect as well, fighting all these wars. We don't know who the hell we got over here that can, do something to us, create an attack on us from within inside the house.
Several military options that commanders might be considering. And we're talking about 2 weeks before either of those, the Marine contingents get here or the soldiers are in a position to attempt any kind of meaningful ground invasion, if you want to call it that, of any description. And as you said, when asked about that, White House spokesperson Caroline Leavitt said, the president said himself, he's not planning.
Shout out again to my FBA sister, Tawanda, for holding down the chat. Peace to you, sister.
To send ground troops anywhere at this time.
Right. Now, there was this threat today from Iran regarding tourist sites and parks across the globe. What do we know about that?
Yeah.
See, they talking about attacking, things over here, parks, this, that, and the other. And we don't know who the hell we got over here. So we got to be really mindful of that, and be on point, like I say, family, and be aware, because to be aware is to be alive. We don't know who the hell we got over here, thanks to the Democrats.
It's not much more than the statement, that line that you just read, because it was only one line by the Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards, that in addition to attack.
This is why we got to be on code too, looking out for other FBA brothers and sisters in the community, protecting each other's needs and interests, you know what I mean? Because we don't know who the hell we got over here. And foundational Black Americans, if shit hit the fan, we know that we all we got.
Attacking sites across the UAE, oil and gas infrastructure, which they continue to do, going after another oil facility in Kuwait, apartment blocks and airports.
Yeah, family, but in closing, that's just about going over there to these other countries and getting them natural resources, and the USA sticking its nose in business and affairs that aren't their own. You know what I mean? And that's a problem that America does. Getting involved in everything, not minding its own business. But it's just too bad. And unfortunately, we tax-paying citizens over here in America got to become the burden bearers for this nonsense. And we got to watch, the aspect of we don't got no sleeper cells, inside the house already that could do a bunch of nonsense. We seen them African Tethers, who were trying to do a bunch of nonsense, terrorist attacks. The one from Senegal, and I believe one was from Sierra Leone, which is a bunch of nonsense, but moving right along. Yeah, family. Since we was, talking about Trump being a white supremacist, I want to talk, of some of the ways white supremacy moves. White supremacy, moves on, like how Trump is doing, creating wars and confusion, this, that, and the other, and that's how, not Africa, like I said, I want to get in a little bit of talking about that and white supremacy. But Africa, was complicit in its own colonization, because they were doing a number of things wrong, including selling, our FBA ancestors, to the, white supremacists, you know what I mean? And, but the white supremacists, we can never take our eyes off of that aspect, because we can't never let them get off the hook because they were, the biggest beneficiaries of the slave trade, you know what I mean? And they was creating, little rifts, tribal rifts, over there in Africa, going and whispering in different, African nations, African people's ears. Oh, he said this, he said that, to try to weaken them, so they can come in there, So two things, like I said, can exist and ultimately be true. Like I said, Africa was complicit in its own colonization, but we can never let the white supremacists off the hook, because they was going in there, whispering lies and creating confusion to make it more opened up to where though they can go in there and pillage and exploit, which is in the white supremacist, nature. Ever since the white supremacists, came out of them caves, family, their goal has been, to cause confusion and mayhem and havoc around the globe. You know what I mean? And just an example of the other day on my job, a white supremacist, a suspected white supremacist, because I work around a lot of, white tea people, and they all suspected white supremacists, if you ask me, because my FBA spider senses get to, tingling, when I'm, encounter a white supremacist. So I know they suspected white supremacists are, they definitely white supremacists, but, a white supremacist that on a job said to me, yeah, such and such, trying to, create confusion with me and another coworker, which was a white coworker. He said that such and such, said that, because I'm the assistant on my job, he's the operator and I'm the assistant operator. So they was like such and such, because I work in a warehouse. Give you a little bit of the backstory. He said such and such said that, he want to become the assistant over here, but such and such don't work right. He just threw that out there to, try to get me up in arms, and mad and see where I would take the thing, But I'm like, when a white supremacist brings me something, why are you bringing this to me? Because I know, I was raised to know how white supremacy works, White supremacy, creates lies, confusion, and they like that in all actuality, creating confusion. So, yeah, I just told them, okay, yeah, I'm not surprised that such and such, would say something like that. But, in all actuality, I said I'm not surprised because I'm not surprised by any damn thing a white supremacist does. You know what I mean? I put nothing past white supremacy. I know they liars, they dangerous, and they cause confusion and, havoc wherever they go, and that's the nature of a devil, creating confusion and havoc. And our good FBA brother Elijah Muhammad, said the white man is the devil. I don't know if y'all remember that. Now I'm not saying I paint them all, as a devil with a broad paintbrush, but, I'm certainly, more a little, because you got devils in everything now. You got devil black people, devil Latinos, this, that, and the other. You got devils that come in many shapes, forms, and fashions. But when I come in contact with, white people, my FBA spidey senses go up, my radar goes up because I know that, all of the confusion in the world is, directly, the white supremacists' fault. They created and facilitated, the havoc upon the world. And that's why the world is being ran into the ground. The biggest threat that we got in the world, ain't these other nations. The biggest threat is systematic racism, white supremacy. Once we knock down the system of racism, white supremacy, we be good to go. You know what I mean? And that's what Pan-Africanism, was supposed to do. That's how it don't work, because Pan-Africanism, if all black people was coming on code under that, we would have knocked down the system of racism, white supremacy. But it was only us foundational black Americans that was upholding that. The damn Tethers that come over here and bow down and take a knee to systematic racism, white supremacy. They wasn't trying to fight it. It was only us real FBA brothers and sisters that stood on business and was trying to fight some white supremacy. So now that we've accessed, we was carrying around dead weight and too much flab on us, we cut that Pan-African thing off, and we gaining more lineage-based traction, by just, focus on in-house issues and things like that. This is how we getting our leg up, because Pan-Africanism don't work. It was supposed to knock down the system of racism, white supremacy. All of them black folks on the planet, if everybody would have been on code, it would have worked, so it shows it don't work, and we gaining more traction and, getting things done as far as our lineage goes now that we cut off people and we're just worried about, in-house business and issues, you know what I mean? But moving right along. Let me see the next thing I wanted to touch on. I just wanted to touch on, how systematic racism, white supremacy works, family. And something else I forgot to add in there, family, regarding the system of racism, white supremacy. Let me get a swig of water real quick. Something else I forgot to add in there, family, was, on my job, they got a new dude who's like upper management, but he's a Latino, and now it's not directly him, doing it, but the white supremacists, they want to go at any, person of color. They really want to go at black people, but if black people ain't around, they'll default into, going at a Latino, this, that, and the other. And I ain't, putting the cape on for Latinos either, because a lot of them are anti-black, but I'm just, showing you I'm just bringing this up to show you how the system of racism, white supremacy works. Now, we got a Latino dude at the job, who is upper management now, and our company, traded hands. He ain't even the head dude in charge, but he's like in the office position. And now that they've incorporated a lot of new things into my job, and now everybody's making him the fall guy. Everybody is saying, oh, Omar did it, the Latino dude, Omar did it. But I know that's because I work around a majority of white people. I know that's just white supremacists doing what white supremacists do. Of course, they ain't going to blame the white supremacist leadership of the job, but they default into, attacking people of color. You know what I mean? And we FBAs, we knew this, we know how the system of racism, white supremacy works. We were in this country alongside the white supremacists for, a good amount of time. Nobody knows how, to address white supremacy better than us foundational black Americans. We go at the jugular vein of white supremacy, And, something that we do different than the Tethers, Latinos and these Caribbean and African Tethers, they'll sit up around the white supremacists and let the white supremacists, talk bad about people. See, I don't sit around white supremacists, talking bad about even that dude at my job, Omar, because that's how on cold we as FBAs are, because we know if the white supremacist is talking bad about, another group of people, they for sure as hell going, talk bad about us FBAs behind our back. So we don't move like that. We FBAs are cut from a different cloth. We the only real true threat to systematic racism, white supremacy, and the white supremacists, like I always say, they know that we a threat. You know what I mean? That's why they got to sabotage us, and everything we do as FBAs. But moving right along. Shout out to my brother Warriors. I don't want to chop your name, 9-9. But moving right along, family. Let me look at my videos to see which the next thing I want to talk about. Yeah, family. Hold on. Let me pull the video up. Bear with me.
Where we at, Cap? Sand City.
Now, the next thing I want to talk about and discuss, family, is bucking the system, giving the middle finger to the system of racism, white supremacy, and how we, as foundational Black Americans, buck the system is getting on cold, setting up businesses and institutions, doing business with our fellow FBA brothers and sisters, and playing as a team, making sure we, employ other FBA brothers and sisters when we start a business, and doing for self, creating our own, getting land, resources, and it's hard. It's easier said than done, but it got to be done, and it's it's critical that we as FBAs, do this. You know what I mean? Start to create businesses and institutions more. We got brothers and sisters doing it now, but we need to get it done, more so on a larger scale because we need something to pass to, our future little FBA brothers and sisters generations to come. And they can't, eat no job, but they can eat, wealth, resources, land, businesses, they can eat off of that and, have generational wealth off of that. And that's how you give the middle finger to, the system of racism, white supremacy, because like I said, white supremacy, its main goal and duty is to try to, sabotage foundational Black Americans. They thought, slavery would destroy our people, but, we rose up out of that through resistance. We knocked that down, and any obstacle in our way, we knocked down as foundational Black Americans. And they know that we the only real true threat to systematic racism, white supremacy. So with that being said, like doing for self and things like that, I want to get into, our brother Cowboy, who was a good friend of Nip. Now there was some, disparaging things, put out about Cowboy. He took the stand, and saying who shot Nip, this, that, and the other. But what would you do if that was your man, and somebody, gunned him down in front of you? And there's been a lot of, negative things put out about, our brother Cowboy, a lot of which ain't even been confirmed, but I ain't speaking to the aspect of that. I'm speaking to the aspect of him doing for self out here moving and shaking. He bought a plot of land out there and I want to say the Nevada desert, a big plot of land. He put his family on, brought his family along, and he's building a house, and he's doing agricultural things out here on this land. So I want to give a big shout out, salute to our brother Cowboy on that aspect. He sold one of his chains. I think it was one of his all money in chains with our FBA brother Nipsey Hussle, and he bought this plot of land, and he's out there building, moving, and shaking. So I want to talk about our FBA brother Cowboy and salute to him on that. Fair use.
Where we at, Cap?
Sand City, man. Cowboy Sand City, man. I'm about to build my house up there out of sand right there.
About to build your house where?
About to build a house up here, man.
And this is what it's really about, family, doing for self, getting your own, getting off the grid. He off the grid with this one. He's building and doing what he got to do. You know what I mean? And this is how you give the middle finger to the system of racism, white supremacy, because he'll be able to pass that land down to his future generations and descendants, you know what I mean? And building a house out there, that's empowering, But let's continue.
Follow that. Yeah, they say, I see big homies out here still teaching the homies politicking about being in the hood. I feel my job is to show niggas how to get out of it.
That's real talk right there, how to get out of it, how to get out of, the four corner box that the white supremacists created, which is the hood to keep us, thinking like crabs in a barrel, crabs in a bucket, and they put all these vices in the hood. They flooded the hood with drugs, this, that, and the other, so we can never take our eyes off the system of racism, white supremacy, that's why I don't like when, black folks, some black folks say, oh, we just need to do better. Oh, we need to stop this, so-called black on black crime, which there ain't none of, because everything was facilitated, by the white supremacists, if you really want to get down to the nitty gritty on things, and everybody got crimes committed in the vicinity, that they live in, like Latinos got Latino on Latino crime. White people got white people on white people crime, more so, so it ain't that, so yeah, we just got to keep our eyes on that the white supremacists, facilitated a lot of the nonsense you might see, in the community. So you just can't write it off as, some, black on black crime. Yeah, we got to, start doing a little bit better, creating resources and things like that. But, I hate when, black folks just get on there and, try to talk down to other black folks and, because what they basically doing by doing that, saying black on black crime, is they trying to signal boost, to get a pat on the head from white mommy and daddy, If we address things on the black FBA grassroots, we do it out of love, and wanting our people to do better, So, yeah, we can never take our eyes off of white supremacy, but we also, when we see things, we call that out as well. But we call it out, under knowing that it's under white supremacy, because they facilitated a lot of the nonsense to go on, because they never wanted us to be creative, and get things moving and shaking and be able to build, because they facilitated a lot of things, the white supremacists that was supposed to destroy us FBAs, but we rose above it and came through it,
You know what I mean? Because, the hood always call us back. We always going back to the hood. We always, we got to say, what? It's a whole better life away from that shit. Because now look at everything over there. Nothing but drama, nothing but death. You know what I mean? So, yeah, this is my house going right here. It's a 360 house.
And you out there amongst the land like that, family, your creativity, your juice is going to start flowing. You're going to start seeing things through a new perspective, because, living in the urban, cities and communities, a lot of times you ain't able to see off, the street corner, the street, block you live on, you know what I mean? Whatever street you live on, you ain't able to see further than that. But being out there, amongst the land, having that sun, tap in with your melanin, you start to get a new lease on life. You start to see things from a new perspective out there, touching that soil and that land like that, that FBA ancestral, energy and memory kicks in, and you start to moving and shaking in a different way, you know what I mean?
Already starting on it.
Now, this is a long ways from Crenshaw. How do you feel about being out here?
Oh, man, I love it.
And you really ain't got to buy nothing, family. That's another aspect of things. We got to start, we got a lot of brothers and sisters that doing it, but we can start, building things on the land, doing our own crops and things like that, to where though you really don't got to go to a grocery store. Everything was supposed to be free, but what the white supremacists did is they like to capitalize off of everything because they only respect money, control, and power. So they got to come through and dominate everything and take it over, and when everything was supposed to be free, regarding the land.
I love you. You ain't seen a helicopter, you ain't seen a siren. Most you heard this morning is a dog bark. That's about it.
But a lot of dudes.
Peace to my brother Reef, my brother and sisters. I'm in law. My in-law just purchased land, and they just finished their home. NC, glad to see our people getting it done. Yeah, that's what it's about, buying land and resources, you know what I mean? Homes and things like that. Like, they want us, what they want to, the white supremacists, they try to, show us, just imagery that everything is about, chains, sneakers, rims on your car. They want us locked into that so we don't have no real wealth. Wealth ain't in that. Wealth is in owning the land, building businesses, and creating homes and things like that, buying up property and things like that, to where though it could trickle down to, our future FBA little brothers and sisters. Fair. Let's get back into it, family. Fair use.
Dudes claim that they own a hood and don't have a house on there. How does it feel right now to own your own Crenshaw?
Man, I feel good, man.
I used to hear brothers, saying that in my younger years that, they own the block, this, that, and the other. But that's, that's you live and you learn, you know what I mean? And a lot of that is white supremacist programming, that's how they want us to think, in that four corner box, to where though we like crabs in a bucket, in a barrel, you know what I mean? But, once you get older, you start to see that, things ain't what it seems. Things was orchestrated a certain way by the white supremacists to keep you in a certain position in life, to where though you never get to ascend, to the upper echelon levels,
I seen niggas die in front of apartments we ain't even live in. We ain't even stay in them apartments. Yes, sir.
What is it
looking good?
What is the feeling of freedom like, man, to have your own, man? How important is it for a man to have his own?
Man, shit, look, we're at war right now. You better have your own. Damn. You know what I mean? You better. Shit.
And another reason why we should start getting more into, like, agriculture and, having vegetables and things that we growing on our own land, because family, what if the grocery store closes down tomorrow? You can't be relying on that, but you still got to survive. So that's a good thing to know, like agriculture, on how to work the land, and even how to go out there and hunt if you need to get meat for yourself, this, that, and the other.
Yeah, they shut down that grocery store. What you gonna do? Got solar panels, got groceries right there. You know what I mean? Go up in these mountains, go do some hunting shit,
Yeah, Sister Black Love, Mike Epps is doing, big things. I seen where he's, buying up property out there, in Indiana. And I also seen where our brother Mike Epps is he made a boxing gym, for at-risk youth. So I like that. I just didn't talk about it. I might have talked about it. I forget. I cover so many stories, but he's got a boxing gym where though he's taking, at-risk youth, trying to get them before, the streets get them, and put them in the gym and, train them and get them boxing so that, they could release a lot of that, frustration and things that they might be going through. So I like that. Our brother Mike Epps is moving and shaking.
So yeah, living off of the land, like I said, I'm sitting here every day. I'm charging my phone. I'm watching TV. I ain't got no bill. So
they said homesteading is the new way for people that can't take the inner city or don't want to pay that exorbitant rent, and to get away from violence. What's your take on that?
I've seen some things, family, to where though people trying to get away from the hustle and the bustle of the city, they getting like RVs and, hooking them up where though they got showers in them, kitchens, TVs, living quarters, and just hooking up an RV. You pay less rent, and they just driving around from city to city exploring. I think the new wave, family, is going to be getting off the grid, and doing for self, and that's what it should be, getting off the grid and, doing some things for self, what I mean? Because we can't be relying on, grocery stores solely, this, that, and the other. What if something happens where you ain't able to get to a grocery store, and having your own land, that's only, going to benefit and enrich you and your future generations and descendants to come.
Because you definitely on the marathon right now.
Yeah, I just think it's the smartest move though. Like you said, I was paying $3,000 a month just to pay one rent. Then I had 3 buildings, so I was paying $16,000 a month just paying rents on stores and shit.
$16,000 a month. You hear that? That's through the roof.
Now I'm paying $500 a month. I got 5 city blocks. You know what I mean? So one of my gold chains paid for all this shit. You know, so
wow. We said it again.
He sold one of his all money in chain to pay for all of that, family. You hear it? You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, you know, a chain is a chain. You know what I mean? That's what they want you locked into, you know, chains, sneakers, and, you know, typical things that's going to get you complacent and not seeing things, you know, through the broader lens and scope. You know what I mean? Owning land and resources. That's how you really, you know, be able to get your leg up and, you know, pass some wealth on, you know, pass some black wealth on to your future descendants.
We talked to which was.
What you say? What paid for what?
One of my gold chains. You know, the price I paid for one of them gold chains, you know.
Salute to the brother Cowboy on this. You know, this is major right here. I salute to him on that. He bought up all that land. He got his family, gave them a plot of land out there, and he's building, you know, houses out there on that land, you know, working and growing the agriculture on that land. This is a major power move right here.
When it was time to get this, I went to the pawn shop.
Now, Nipsey said in one of his interviews that he wanted to get some assets, some land, and some property. Yeah. That was one of his famous interviews.
See, Nipsey was ahead of his time, our FBA brother Nipsey, talking about getting land and assets because he knew it wasn't just about, you know, what the white supremacists want us fixated on, sneakers, jewelry, the latest clothes. It's about really owning and controlling your own narrative. You know, that's how you buck the system. You know what I mean? Creating your own things, you know, because the way the system wants it is, you know, you just being programmed and getting up, you know, ain't nothing wrong with this and punching the time clock, you know, working for somebody else, family, you just enrich them, you know, and at the end of the day, when your body breaks down from doing all that toil and strenuous work, you know, what do you got to fall back on? We got to start thinking about the long game. I know that's what I personally be telling myself, you know, what's the end game? You know what I mean? This is why I'm trying to, you know, move into doing more, you know, things independently, you know what I mean, to where I can create some real wealth for myself, because you don't want to rich, you know, these white institutions, because, you know, going back to white supremacy, a lot of these businesses and institutions, you know, as far as America's concerned, you know, in the world, you know, was run and controlled by the white supremacists. You know, you just enrich them, you know what I mean? And that money don't stay in our community. You know, you just don't want to punch some time clock. You know, family, we got to get into the mindset and the mode of being job makers instead of job takers. You know, we employing our people to where, though, we could look out for our people, put them on, you know, and keep that money locked down and consolidated to our community. And our brother Nipsey was right on the money with that. He knew it was about controlling your own narrative.
Years. How does that correlate with what you're doing right now?
Oh yeah, that's the real marathon, because we already see what's going on.
Yeah, family, I just wanted to show y'all that, you know, big shout and salute to our brother Cowboy for, you know, getting a plot of land and, you know, putting his family on and really building, you know, building generational wealth out there on the land, you know. Next, family, I want to talk about this Yvette Cornell, you know, with the ADOS movement. You know, ADOS is a movement, you know, but she made a Twitter post, you know, a few days ago. She said, why would brother Tariq get mad at Umar Johnson for creating a bootleg FBA when an FBA is a bootleg version of the ADOS movement, you know? And FBA, you know, ain't no movement, you know what I mean? And she done said it, you know. She basically debunked herself. She said that ADOS is a movement. FBA ain't no movement. FBA is a lineage, you know. And if we FBAs learned anything, you know, from the past, is that we don't need no leaders, you know, because when you got leaders can be targeted, such as our brother, you know, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Medgar Evers, the list goes on, you know. When you got one person, you know, heading something, they could take it down, you know, but when you let your lineage do the leading, ain't nobody to target, you know. And Yvette Cornell is just mad and frustrated that our good brother Tariq Nasheed, you know, is telling people he ain't no leader of the lineage, you know, and he's getting, you know, all his accolades and respect. You know, she wish because, you know, she's the leader, you know, of that, you know, ADOS, you know what I mean? And she's claiming to be a, a leader of that. You even look at their website and they clearly state that they an organization, because I went over there and did my little homework research and due diligence. So she just mad that, she's calling herself a leader and she ain't gaining no traction and upward mobility the same way our brother Tariq Nasheed is. And our brother Tariq always states that he ain't no leader of FBA lineage. You let your lineage do the leading, and you let the code be the leader. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's just a bad faith, argument that she put out there because she's mad and frustrated, that ADOS thing, was in the tank. You know what I mean? And we see a lot of, people trying to say that FBA is a stem off from ADOS. Tariq Nasheed was down with the, ADOS movement, this, that, and the other. And, I think Brother Tariq, did, he said in his own words that he tweeted out, hashtagged ADOS, but he had no idea it was a lineage. But when he had no idea it was a movement. But when he caught wind of, they was trying to run it up under being a movement, he said, hell to the nah. I ain't dealing with this. I ain't rocking with this. You know what I mean? Because, he thought it was, lineage based. They was pushing some lineage, and then they, rearranged the table, and flipped the deck of cards over, and now they claiming to be a movement, and he had no idea about that. So then that's when he, start running with the term, FBA to identify our lineage, and our lineage ain't something that, it just, magically popped up, because we hear that narrative, oh, FBA just popped up a few years, 5 years ago, this, that, and the other. No, our lineage been around, you know what I mean? We've been on this land for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. We ain't some generic Africans. And when anybody is on a landmass that long, they have an ethnogenesis, and become a new group, So all Brother Tariq did was put a name, to it, and got the lineage on code, based off of that, and I salute to our brother Tariq Nasheed on that, getting FBA brothers and sisters on code. And then Yvette Cornell just mad and frustrated, that ADOS movement thing, ain't gaining traction, you know what I mean? And she ain't, gaining a following, because people see through the, the BS that she pushing the movement, and not lineage, you know what I mean? Because, ain't nobody getting behind no movement, because movements could be co-opted and taken down, you know what I mean? We learned that in the past with our brothers, Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. But when you let your lineage do the leading, how can they, target 45 million FBAs? They can't do it, you know what I mean? But a movement, on the other hand, they could co-opt and take that down. So I just wanted to bring that, to the table, that, this op, Yvette Cornell was trying to, discredit our FBA lineage, by trying to frame it as a movement, this, that, and the other. And she debunked herself, because she said ADOS is a movement, and that is a movement, you know what I mean? And they even say that they're an organization, you know what I mean? And as far as the, Umar Johnson thing goes, I ain't even gonna give him, the credit, calling him a doctor, because he ain't no damn doctor, you know what I mean? As far as that goes, with him saying that he's gonna start an FBA, his own FBA group, or whatever the nonsense he said, that ain't going nowhere fast, you know what I mean? Because people see right through, Umar Johnson's BS, you know what I mean? He don't produce nothing tangible, you know what I mean? He just does a bunch of talking, and he always tried to, take up for the tether class, and shame us FBAs, oh, leave the good Africans alone. All you FBAs is doing this to the Africans. Oh, you FBAs is doing that. If he feels that strongly about Africa, why ain't his punk ass living over there on the continent? I seen he got some citizenship, but he brought his narrow ass back home to the U.S. He should have kept his ass living over there, but moving right along. I just wanted to bring that to the family's attention, that, Yvette Cornell, is trying to discredit our FBA, lineage by calling it a movement, you know what I mean? And we see that now, family, though. It's just, the signs is all over the walls, it's written all over the wall that, it's by design, people are being sent to attack our foundational Black American lineage at this point, you know what I mean? Because it's just too many ops in the paint, and the mere fact that, everybody is attacking our FBA lineage, it shows you how powerful it is at the end of the day. Because what we doing is gaining major traction and headway, by dropping a lot of the dead weight, by calling ourselves generic African Americans are picking up this lineage base, and, identifying our lineage as foundational Black Americans, we got to talk about reparations being talked about everywhere. Now we gaining all kind of traction. And if you ever need any, proof that, we gaining traction, just look at all the naysayers and the haters and the ops, the Tethers, the scam Africans that are trying to attack our FBA lineage, but it ain't going to work. They just crying and mad and frustrated and disgruntled because they losing control, because if you got control of something, you really don't give a damn. You know what I mean? You may have, such as, I give an example, like people on a job, they get frustrated, and constantly, talk about their job because they feel that the buck stops with their job. They lost control. That's going to be their only lot in life to work that job. But in the same way with our lineage, people feel like they lost control of the narrative. You know what I mean? That's why they trying to attack it. They ain't getting us to buy into Pan-Africanism. We done away with it. And, we said to hell with that. We picking up our lineage base, we delineated and, we identified our FBA lineage, that's making people feel, frustrated and that they lost control, of the narrative, because the narrative was supposed to be keeping us locked into some vague Pan-Africanism and generic African-American, that's how they wanted us to stay, so they can get the profit and capitalizing off of us, but moving right along. Voice is getting kind of hoarse. Now I want to talk about this Afro shit tank guy, family. He was coming out our lineage wrong and sideways. Just a second, let me find the video. Here we go. Afro thing. Now, let me give you some of the backstory on this, family. This is in relation to us, putting out videos on the Black FBA grassroots that, 19 fleas, 19 scams was an op. He's saying that we don't got the ability as foundational Black Americans to cancel not a damn soul, Afro shit tank, and I beg to differ. Why don't you go ask Fat Joe, aka Fat Ho, if we got the ability as foundational Black Americans to get anybody canceled? Why don't you ask that, fake Latino Panther Paul Birdsong, if we got the ability to get people canceled, as foundational Black Americans on the Black FBA grassroots, So yeah, Afro shit tank is just mad, frustrated, and disgruntled that he's losing control, of the narrative, and that scam Africanism bag is drying up for him. And we're gonna walk through and talk about this thing how we normally do, family. Fair use.
Afro think tank. So I see that 19 Keys, right, has said that FBA is a xenophobic hate group, right?
And he did say that damn, 1 foot in, 1 foot out traitor, 19 Keys, 19 fleas. And we've exposed him, we exposed him on my channel, and a lot of other, FBA content creators was exposing that 19 scams. You know what I mean?
Now FBA's all mad talking about they're canceling 19 Keys, right? And saying he should get out of Hidden Colors series. We should take him out of Hidden Colors series. The funny thing is, Tariq Nasheed is known for his Hidden Colors DVDs when he was...
Here come the lie, family.
...a Pan-African...
And they always typically try to say that talking point that our brother Tariq Nasheed, was putting out Hidden Colors series. He started off being a Pan-Africanist, this, that, and the other. And our brother Tariq Nasheed, as far as my knowledge and understanding, he never said that he was going, back to Africa and was on some, Pan-Africanism kick and, living over there in Africa, and let's just say for shits and giggles, our brother Tariq Nasheed, was a Pan-Africanist, many years ago, and let's just say for shits and giggles that was true. It ain't true, but let's say it was true. What's to say that you can't grow and evolve and have a different way of thinking? Everything goes through chambers and cycles. Just because you start off one way don't mean that's going to be the way you are finishing the race. You know what I mean? Just like, for example, a person that, might have started off, in the streets hustling, selling drugs, that don't mean that their life is capped off at the streets selling drugs. They might grow and evolve, go back to school, become a lawyer, this, that, and the other, become an owner of their own business. You know, your whole story ain't equivalent to the way you start off. You know, everything grows and evolves, or should be growing and evolving and changing. You know, everything goes through cycles, you know, so that don't matter, you know, even if he was a Pan-Africanist, you know, which he wasn't, you know, but even if he was, you know, that's not saying nothing. Everything can grow and change, you know, and wake up, you know. Maybe Brother Tariq Nasheed, you know, I think he said something about this before. He woke up and seen the way that these, you know, damn tethers come over here and look down upon our people, get in political office and try to undermine our people, say we don't need no reparations, we lazy, Akadas, your ears, this, that, and the other, you know, and that's what woke me up. I personally thought that, you know, everybody black was playing as a team. You know, that's how I looked at it, you know, when I, you know, viewed, when I seen, you know, other black folks, even if they wasn't from America, you know, I used to see them, you know, as being on code. You know, I used to try to look out for them to a certain degree, you know, even if, you know, they was black from anywhere, to I, you know, seeing that these people don't give a damn about our people. They come over here, they undermine our people, they get in their own little groups and enclaves, and they don't give a damn about foundational black American society. So we ain't obligated to, you know, do not a damn thing for these individuals, you know, but let's continue.
Right? He was showing Pan-Africans talking about Pan-African stuff. But FBA is so stupid and so wrapped up in their new little 5-year-old fan club called FBA.
I told you that's a normal talking point. We hearing that, you know, FBA was started 5 years ago, this, that, and the other. You know, our lineage been around, you know. Us using the term foundational black Americans to identify that, it don't matter how new that was. Our lineage been around, you know. We've been on American soil hundreds and hundreds of years. Anybody, when they on a landmass, you know, that long of a time, going to have an ethnogenesis and become a new group. We ain't no generic Africans. You damn scam African, you know, Afro shit tank. You just mad that scam Africanism bag is drying up for you because more foundational black Americans is waking up to, you know, identifying with their foundational black American lineage. That's where the frustration's coming into play.
Because these guys, it's pattern recognition. They love the sound. FBA, it sounds cool. It's like a little gang and shit, right? And they insist that they're a lineage. That way, anything African Americans do, they say, oh, look at that FBA. Listen, African Americans do not accept you. There's no way Tariq Nasheed, a failed
African Americans, you know, ain't us. We're foundational black Americans. You know what I mean? African Americans is anyone coming over here from the continent of Africa, the Caribbean, you know, that's an African American, you know, so we don't give a damn if they, you know, accept us or not. Real foundational black American brothers and sisters, they know they got a unique lineage that was forged over here on American soil through resistance, fighting white racism, white supremacy, and never, you know, bowing down and fleeing, unlike these foreign fleeing tethers.
Rapper, all right, fake pimp. All right.
Now he just taking personal shots at Brother Tariq Nasheed. You know what I mean? Because that scam African bag is drying up for Afro shit tank.
Unfunny comedian who you guys find hilarious has the authority or the credentials to rename 54 to 55 million African Americans who are very much happy with the term African Americans, because we are in fact Africans by race and American by nationality.
And Afro shit tank is of the lineage. He FBA, but he just, you know, he wants to be some generic African so much. Why don't he take his narrow ass over there to Africa to live? You know what I mean? And stop trying to, you know, convince us FBAs, which he'll never convince us, that we ain't of the soil. You know what I mean? If you want to be African so much, take your narrow ass over there to Africa and live, you know? Stop trying to force your views and, you know, your way of seeing things on us as foundational black Americans, you know, because we ain't some generic Africans, you know, we of the soil, you know what I mean? And we're going to, you know, recognize all of our contributions and, you know, all of the fly things we did over here on American soil. We ain't going to chalk it up in the air to, you know, being some generic Africans to where everybody gets to eat off of our unique history and lineage and culture.
You got 19 Keys who may possibly be a grifter. I'm not going to say he's not, because I'm not sure what he does. All right, I'm not going to lie.
19 Keys, what he was doing was just trying to play, you know, have 1 foot in and 1 foot out, you know, play both sides of the field, and there is no in between, you know. Either you standing on FBA lineage business or you ain't. And clearly 19 scams ain't.
He seems very spiritual, pseudo-spiritual. I mean, he be saying some good stuff, but at least he talks positively, right? I don't know how he making his money, but he talks at least, he's saying a lot of good stuff, right? And even he...
19 Keys talks positively my ass. He was trying to shame us FBAs. Oh, we attacking the good old Africans, this, that, and the other, and trying to convince us to, go back. He's trying to convince us to go over there to Africa on some, we all going back to Africa, which is a bunch of nonsense, you know what I mean? And he just, 19 Keys is only on that kind of timing because that bag is drying up for him in all actuality. You know what I mean? He got some coffee company over there, and Dylan's over there in Africa, and that bag is drying up for him, now that, foundational Black Americans have picked up the lineage, you know what I mean? And I don't appreciate 19 Keys, punk ass, trying to, talk down to us foundational Black Americans like we picking on the good old Africans, this, that, and the other. You know what I mean? What about all the damn Africans that come over here and call for harm to be done to foundational Black Americans, making threats on the internet, this, that, and the other, calling us lazy, Akadas, saying we don't need no reparation. All of that just goes out the window, you know what I mean? Because they got the capes on for Africa. Africa is their utopia, you know what I mean? But let's continue.
You can't rock with Tariq Nasheed's new fan club, FBA. No one respects you guys. Have you not figured it out? No one, you can't, how can FBA cancel anybody? You guys don't have.
Go ask Fat Ho, aka Fat Joe. You go ask that, Latino head of the so-called Black Panthers, Paul Birdsong, that we discredited, and made him change the namesake and likeness of that, particular group. You go ask them, how we can't cancel anybody. You know what I mean? We canceled the Essence Awards too, FBAs being on code, on a grassroots level, ain't nothing in the world we can't do. What I mean with us all being on code and driving in the same direction to get a common goal knocked out, ain't nothing we can't do.
The authority or the foundation to cancel anybody. You guys are a joke and you guys are so stupid.
He said we ain't got the foundation to cancel anybody. Negro, please, we are the foundation. You know what I mean? Built the nation, you know what I mean? And we got the global culture that everybody wants to copycat, steal, emulate, but they can't. There's only one real McCoy, and there's only one group of people that's bar none. It's us foundational Black Americans.
You haven't realized that you are a joke. You haven't realized that African Americans view you as a joke. That Pan-Africans view you as a joke. That all Africans view you as a joke. That white people view you as a joke. Latinos view you as a joke.
We don't give a damn, what all of these other groups of people think, especially not no damn white supremacists. You know what I mean? If we would have, went along with what the white supremacists thought and, were in alignment and agreement with, we would have never, got our freedom, out of slavery. We would have never fought, the system of slavery with resistance if we gave a damn what the white supremacists thought, because they wasn't trying to end no slavery, no way. They had a good thing going on. They was riding high on the hog, they wouldn't have stopped that. So we don't give a damn what the white supremacists or any other group for that matter got to say. We representing our FBA lineage, and that's the new way from here on out.
You are a joke to the world. FBA is a joke to the world. Everyone's laughing at you, not with you. And like I said, you can't cancel anybody, all right? There's nobody you guys have the authority or power to cancel.
Afro shit tank is just mad and frustrated and disgruntled that scam Africanism bag is drying up for him, because he's legitimizing, us foundational Black Americans, we don't need no legitimization, but he's legitimizing us, by even keep on, putting out 50 million gazillion videos regarding our FBA lineage. It shows you how impactful our FBA lineage is, that every corner you turn around, you got these damn scam Africans, Tethers, and these damn coons that are trying to attack our FBA lineage.
What you should be doing, all right, is trying to get them reparations from them Republican white boys that you guys promote. That's what you should be doing. Go beg them.
And that's a normal talking point right there that, FBAs is MAGA. FBAs is 45 million, brothers and sisters, representing their lineage, who might be Democrats, Republicans, Christians, Muslims, none of that matters, but what does matter is we got a common, lineage, either you born FBA or you're not. So what he talking about really don't matter,
That white man for them reparations, because that's supposed to be y'all whole shit, all right?
And we ain't begging for not a damn thing. We demanding reparations. And we got to talk about reparations in the mainstream public lexicon, which is more than, us calling ourselves vague, generic African Americans or, going under a Pan-Africanism banner has ever done for our people,
But even the grifters are saying they don't want shit to do with you. That's terrible. Terrible. You're a joke. What's going on, everybody? This
Afro shit tank is just mad, frustrated, crying, whining, and disgruntled, that bag is drying up for him, and if he loves Africa so much, why don't he go take his narrow ass over there to Africa to live, and stop crying and whining to us real FBA brothers and sisters. Afro shit tank better move, because either way, this FBA freight train coming through and he going to get ran over, moved and pushed to the side, so it's best if he get out the way. But moving right along. You see the next topic I want to talk about and discuss, family. Just a second, family. Let me pull it up. And if you're new to the channel, family, make sure you like and subscribe, Like and subscribe. I mean, like anyway, but if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. Just a second, family. I'll be having so many videos, it's hard for me to find them. I think I got it. Just a second. Yeah, I got it. Let me pull it up. Now, family, we're going to get into, the Houston spring break and the rodeo that they had down there a few days ago. When you got the damn Tethers, the white supremacists, and the coons, trying to, come at FBA Sistas saying, they was wearing provocative clothing. This is a family event, this, that, and the other. And I don't like people attacking, our FBA sisters, like that. You know what I mean? Because they doing it, from a bad faith, standpoint, trying to get signal boosted and a pat on the head from white mommy and daddy, and damn that, if, I did see some videos, where some sisters, was dressing, wrong, and, they should, get that together, that's something that we're going to deal with, in-house, and, they should have, got that together a little bit more, and, had themselves covered up a little bit better, you know what I mean? But I ain't gonna let somebody, denigrate our sisters like that, you know what I mean? Because they doing it from a standpoint to try to get a pat on the head from white mommy and daddy, and if when we call out stuff, us real FBA brothers and sisters, we do it out of place of love, and wanting our people, to do better, you know what I mean? We ain't calling it out from a place of, bad faith and trying to get signal boosted by white supremacist society, unlike these, Tethers and these coons, you know what I mean? So yeah, we're gonna call that out, when the Tethers and the coons do it all day, every day, but our sisters, do need to, some of our sisters that's, was down there at that rodeo, it wasn't even all of them, but I seen some videos where some sisters was dressed provocatively. They shouldn't have been, you know what I mean? Leave something to the imaginations to the sisters that doing that. Because if you want to, this is a little game right here. You want to attract, a good FBA brother, they don't want their woman, showing everything. You got to leave something up to the imagination. You know what I mean? But we still ain't going to let nobody, these, coons and these damn Tethers and these white supremacists, target our sisters on the other hand, and just make them, the target, of attacks. We ain't gonna let that go down. So I got the audio and the video of, some Tethers and coons and the Houston Fox News, saying that they changing the rodeo. You got to have a dress code now if you want to go to the rodeo, and we gonna walk through and talk about it how we normally do. Fair use.
Well, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo is in the headlines every single March, but this year, not just for the concerts and the competition.
So this has a lot of people talking after several weekend incidents forced the carnival to close early on Saturday. Officials, they're clarifying expectations on the rules, and that does include revised dress code. So McKenna Earnhardt is live at Energy Park with what you need to know before you head out to the gates. You probably need to fix your wardrobe if it's a little skimpy.
Family, all of these, this is something else I want to add in there. All of these damn, Tethers and, coons that want to go at, FBA sisters for maybe, some of them may be dressing a little bit provocatively. You never hear them with that same energy and smoke for, the white supremacists when they go to them raves and then mosh pits, banging each other upside the head, acting a fool, on some, animalistic style behavior, you know what I mean? Or, at the New Orleans where they have that Mardi Gras thing, them white women, revealing a t-shirt, showing their titties, trying to get beads. You never hear them with that same smoke for the white supremacist society. So damn that, we ain't going to sit up, and let you target our FBA sisters like that, and make them, the target, to just say that they ratchet. I even heard some, damn coons and tethers, going as far as saying, FBA culture. They said black culture, but what they really mean to say is, FBA culture is ratchet. We ain't gonna sit around, let you call out our sisters, or try to denigrate our lineage as a whole. You know what I mean? Because everybody got some, nonsense that goes on in a, community, and we ain't out of that. We got some, things that go on in our community just the same way that other people do. But when we real FBA brothers and sisters call out, our community, we do it out of a place of love, not trying to get a pat on the head from white mommy and daddy and get signal boosted in the system of racism, white supremacy.
Yeah, as you ladies know, fashion is always a huge part of the rodeo, but this year a different trend has been going viral. Pictures and videos circulating on social media of what people are calling more club wear than rodeo wear. And so we've got those photos here for you. If you take a look at your screen, we've blurred them, but you'll see what kind of sparked this conversation. So rodeo officials are emphasizing that this is and always has been a family-friendly event. The updated policy states that any clothing deemed inappropriate or showing excessive skin could result in you being turned away at the gate or asked to leave. The policy also bans any clothing, tattoos, or accessories with gang affiliations. And face coverings are prohibited unless they are for cultural, religious, or medical reasons. Back in school, they would tell us, the fingertip rule. If you have like a hemline, you want it 2 below your fingertips. How are your security guards and staff trained on this?
What they're going to be looking for is things that are just inappropriate, right? And so you know it when you see it. And so we don't want to single people out. We want to give them the opportunity to address their whatever they're wearing so they can come in and have a good time. But again, this is a family-friendly event. And we want to make sure if it's that everyone here is comfortable with what they're seeing around them. And there's lots of different ways you can describe that, but I think all of us know what's appropriate and what's not.
We were talking about it even before we found out it was in place, just some of the questionable things we've seen, and being able to bring our kids to a family-friendly atmosphere.
And two, we always got to, bring it back to systematic racism, white supremacy. They show, our FBA sisters from a young age, that dressing provocatively is it. They put it in all of the music, Cardi B, and all of these damn, female rappers nowadays, you know what I mean? They push a narrative with that, so yeah, it all reverts back to systematic racism, white supremacy. They love, to make, our sisters, think that, they got to be validated, by, exposing themselves. And, that couldn't be farther from the truth, and the sisters that's going out there, if you dressing provocatively, leave a little something to the imagination, put something on, because that ain't it, you know what I mean? Because that ain't going to do nothing but, even though we don't care what the white supremacists, and the tethers and even the coon class think, that just gives them, ammunition to try to target you, and we ain't gonna let, any other lineage be targeted like that, and scapegoated when you got white women, left and right going down there to, Mardi Gras, showing titties and, trying to get beads, hanging out in them mosh pits and them bars, St. Patrick's Day, getting drunk, out there in the middle of the street, starting brawls and fights, so you ain't just gonna paint, all FBA society with a broad paintbrush, not on my watch, and for the coons that's doing it, I'll be damned, never in a million years would I get on the internet, and try to, call out my sisters or any other, FBA, and try to get a pat on the head from the white supremacist society. Damn that, you know what I mean? Y'all got a hell of a nerve in doing that.
Here is really important to us. So yeah, I think it's a great thing.
Now, if you do happen to get stopped at the gate, they said they'll try and work with you so you can change, but if not, you will be asked to leave. And if you try to do the whole keep the clothes in your bag and change in the bathroom trick once you're in, there's people around the grounds that will ask you to leave.
Now, family, I just showed y'all the clip that of the Houston rodeo to show y'all, some paint the story for you, to show you that, what's going on with the rodeo. Now we're going to get into some clips of, the Tethers and the Coons, trying to come at, FBA sisters and paint them with a broad brush, and try to demonize, FBA society. We ain't going to have that. It's getting checked quick, fast, and in a hurry. So let me pull these videos up, family. Now, the next guy I'm going to show, he's a moist, sassy punk, a tether, trying to come at our FBA lineage. He got several videos. I went and checked his page over there on TikTok, speaking highly of our FBA lineage. And like I said, he ain't nothing but a moist, sassy punk.
Video about Houston on, what I didn't like about it.
Fair use.
On my other page, I made a video about Houston on, what I didn't like about it and why I chose to move from the South back over here to the West Coast. But within those talking points, it made me think about the conversation between FBA people and, the rest of the Black diaspora, Africans, Caribbeans, all that stuff, right? How can Tariq Nasheed, the rest of the FBA people, talk all of that shit about African people, Caribbean people, and how they live and what they do in their way of life, while blatantly ignore all of the shit that Black people do in the South? I mean,
we don't ignore not a damn thing, that our people do. Like I said, I called it out. Some of our sisters that was, dressed provocatively, they shouldn't have been doing that. But what we're not going to do is, try to signal boost for the dominant white society, and get a pat on the head from white supremacist society, and when we call out our people, we do it in-house and we do it from a place of love, and wanting better for our people and our lineage, unlike, foreign fleeing tethers, because this guy's a tether, make no mistake about it.
Y'all, have y'all not seen how these people are conducting themselves for this?
Look at the hairline. This is a sassy punk tether.
Spring break. Mind you, these are all Black people. FBA Black people, mind you, but they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about how their women and their little girls from their FBA Black community are hypersexual, not hypersexualized, hypersexual. They get the fake IDs. They blatantly go and seek older men that they...
Our women ain't, hypersexual. You got that in every society. It's just that the white supremacist society tried to magnify, every little thing that goes on in FBA society, to try to paint us in a negative light, and paint us with a broad brush, you know what I mean? So, yeah, things, ain't, degenerateness ain't isolated to FBA society. Every, society got degenerateness, but what it is that, system of racism, white supremacy know that our people are the only real true threat to the system of racism, white supremacy. So they try to demonize our people, and paint them with a broad paintbrush. And we don't let that go down.
They know it's illegal for them to talk to and engage with, coerce them into talking and engaging with them. Because they want to be a boss bitch. They want to be a bad bitch. They want to be on baddies. They want to do all this other extra shit. These little broads is fucking niggas.
This dude is a moist, sassy punk.
In a fishbowl while people are recording with the light on and shit like that. Like, you just can't make none of this up. I mean, look at the spring break that is going on out here in Houston.
I swear, I think if these individuals think in their own mind, these damn tethers, and these, ops to our FBA lineage, that the more they cry on the internet, that's going to get us to drop representing our FBA lineage. And it ain't going to happen, This is the new norm from here on out,
Houston. And for whatever reason, FBA people think that is okay. That is more justified of a way of life. That is a better way of behaving and conducting themselves than the behaviors and the things that they highlight coming out of Africa and the Caribbean. It just doesn't make any...
And, FBAs, we only talk about the tether class, and we ain't supposed to sit around, sit on our hands when our individuals come over here off of what our ancestors did and not, talk about them, But what it is that you tethers come over here and you want to be, in alignment with the white supremacists and just, focus on FBA society, while ignoring the homelands that are in devastation, shit in the streets, you ain't got running toilets over there in your homelands where you come from, and then you come over here and act all high and mighty getting around the white supremacists. And damn that, we're going to call you the tether class out and the white supremacists out. Nobody gets a pass from real FBA brothers and sisters.
Any sense, and it's contradicting at this point. It's hypocritical. It's very, very intellectually dishonest of them to really sit around and bash African and Caribbean people.
Ain't nothing more hypocritical than these foreign fleeing musty tethers coming over here to America, our homeland, the land that us FBAs built, our ancestors built, and sitting up fixing their face, to say that we don't deserve no reparations, we lazy Akadas, and get in political office to undermine us, you know what I mean? So yeah, damn what this dude is talking about. He's a foreign fleeing tether, and he ain't fixated on his homeland. His homeland is in devastation. That's why he's sitting up over here.
People all day, every single day, but yet their FBA children, their FBA youth, the FBA young adults are out here as the most classless population of people on earth, are the most
classless my ass. FBA's got the global culture, you know what I mean? From, fashion, arts, advocacy, civil rights leaders, we ain't got no damn degenerate culture. What it is that you guys got degenerate culture, over there in Africa and the Caribbean, wherever the hell your family fled from, and you try to paint, that on us, you know what I mean? You try to, reflect that on us, and we ain't gonna let that happen.
Nourished, are the most ill-behaved, are the most chaotic, dysfunctional population of black people that it currently exists. But yet they have such a big chip on their shoulder.
And everybody got degenerateness, to a certain degree in their cultures and societies. White people, Latino people, people from Africa, the Caribbean, ain't nobody exempt from having that stuff. But what it is that, the white supremacists magnifies ours more, and try to, paint us that way, and depict us that way. You know what I mean? So it paints us, in a negative light, in individuals' minds. We don't let that go on. We tout the real, and this is why I started my platform, to combat these white supremacist narratives, that they put out there. You know what I mean?
All this dip on their chip. They got all this smoke, all this shit, all this animosity, all this energy for Africans, all this energy for Caribbean people. But yet when it comes to holding themselves accountable, when it comes to highlighting their own shortcomings.
And we hold ourselves accountable, but we ain't going to, sit up there and denigrate our people, and we ain't got to do it amongst you. You an outsider. We take care of family business in-house, and that's separate, from outsiders. We don't need outsiders in our business and affairs. When we get some straightening done, we do it out of love, and wanting our people, to, get our leg up, and move forward. We ain't doing it around outsiders to where, though, they trying to get a pat on the head from the dominant white society. You know what I mean? Damn that. We take care of in-house cleaning amongst the family.
When it comes to highlighting their way of life, their behaviors, all of a sudden they legally blind. All of a sudden they can't see shit. All of a sudden they Ray Charles out here. They Stevie Wonder and shit. It just doesn't make any sense, and I don't like it. And
these tethers kill me. All of the, tribalism, they banging each other upside the head with coconuts and draft legs in their homeland, shitting on the street, they villages in disarray, but yet they come over here and, want to tell us FBAs, what we ain't doing right. We FBAs, are doing something right. We knocked down, slavery, and we made a lane to where, though, your punk musty ass could come over here and flee to, you sassy punk.
I'm going to call it out every single time. Since they want to make it a point to call out Africans for eating African bushmeat, don't want to acknowledge the lack of resources those people have in that area as to why they eat the things that they eat and do the things that they do.
Yeah, we know they got a lack of resources, but they lack codification and unity over there. They got the, majority over there, them white people and them Asians over there, they're at a minimum. It's more black people over there, but they can't come on code and, come together with one another in solidarity and unity enough, to a point to where, though, they can get a stronghold over there, so that falls on them. It falls on white supremacy, but it also falls on them too a little bit. They got to, get their shit in order, for lack of a better word.
So we're going to do the exact same thing to them. Anytime we see these spring break videos, we see them getting exposed, and they got all these brick ladies, and they doing all this other extra shit. Yeah, I'm going to call it out every single time, because they fast to call out African people, and they fast to call out Caribbeans. And
I can't even listen to no more of this sassy punk's horse shit. Yeah, I'm moving on, family. I can't listen to no more of him. It's just bad faith. Pull up some more videos, family. Of what's, these Tethers and these coons trying to come at our FBA sisters. You know, here goes one. I don't know what the hell this guy is. You know, but he's clearly an op. You know, trying to say that. You know, he's probably a tether though, most likely a tether. You know, saying that. You know, black culture is trash, this, that, and the other. When we are the global culture, you know what I mean? Black culture ain't reduced to no nonsense or crime. That's what the white supremacists want, you know, black FBA culture, you know, because what he's really meaning to say is FBA culture is trash, and we ain't gonna let that slide. You know, FBA culture is rich, unique. It's built upon resistance to civil rights. You know, all of the musical art forms in America we started and created. You know, then the white supremacists try to slip in and take credibility for it. So we are the global culture. You know, and these damn tethers got a lot of nerve for coming over here to America and trying to, you know, discredit our FBA lineage and the strides we made over here on American soil.
They gonna bash me for what I'm saying, but it's real shit, bro. Like, black culture is trash, bro. Like, not being black, but the black culture, like, bro, the internet made Houston, LA.
And he's saying this based off of, you know, what went on at that Houston thing, you know, the Houston rodeo, which is a bunch of nonsense, you know. They don't sit up there and say, you know, because he's a coward, you know, he's a tether. He fled his homeland, you know, most likely, you know, and they don't sit up there, you know, and call white supremacist society out for all the degenerateness that's going on out there. What he's trying to do is get a pat on the head from white mommy and daddy, you know, because like I said, you know, white people go to them mosh pits, them raves, you know, some of them rock and roll concerts, be in the crowd, you know, beating each other up, you know, punching each other in the face, you know, and you know, going to St. Patrick's Day parades, getting drunk in the street, but that don't get magnified. You know, they try to always, you know, magnify, you know, foundational Black American society in the system of racism, white supremacy.
Miami, Dallas, all aesthetic cities to move to start over, to start lashes,
nails, the podcast and all that, creating clothing brand shit, all that goofy shit, aesthetic cities.
What they be seeing kicking Alfredo music? Yeah, like, hey, man, like, niggas wait in line all day, bro, at the club all night, just to pay hundreds to get in that bitch.
And just to be on their phone, every day.
And he talking about certain little, you know, sectors of, you know, FBA society. Every society, like I said, got some, you know, unhighly people in that, you know, that might do, you know, negative things, you know, but that ain't limited to our culture. You know what I mean? You got several FBA brothers and sisters that's, you know, getting up, going to work, you know, owning their own businesses, being good, you know, parents to their kids, you know, but that don't get signal boosted because in the system of racism, white supremacy, they know that we the threat and they work to show us in a negative light, you know, to paint the perception of us, you know, unhighly. And damn that, this is why we got these platforms, you know, to where though we could push, you know, our real story as foundational Black Americans, you know, from a grassroots level, you know, and buck the status quo, you know what I mean? Because, you know, in a system of racism, white supremacy, you know, we're the number one targets because they know on the other hand, we the number one threats. But yeah, moving right along. It's a lot of this stuff is just horse crap. I just wanted to show it to the family. Hold on, let me pull up some more videos, family. Bear with me.
See, what I don't.
Now, this is this sassy tether, you know, again, you know, I showed you him earlier, you know, he making 50 million gazillion videos about FBA. You know, he's mad and frustrated that, you know, we delineated, you know, and, you know, the delineation thing is kicking their asses. You know, they don't know what to do because they got to be responsible for their own degeneracy. You know, they ain't got us foundational Black Americans backing them no more with the cultural capital. You know, when somebody does something, you know, that's negative in their community, they got to own it. You know, they can't dump their trash on us no more. You know, we delineated, you know, we specified what things were, who were the real innovators and creators, and all of that credit goes to us FBAs, you know, and they just mad about that. So, you know, this is that sassy punk again, you know, making 50 million gazillion videos about FBAs. Fair use.
Don't understand about the FBA movement is how can you guys claim, oh, I'm FBA?
You came in there wrong. FBA is not a movement, it's a lineage, you know what I mean? And, nobody can be the leader of a lineage, either you're born FBA or you're not. And with inside a lineage, you're going to have, different thoughts and processes, but it still don't change our lineage.
My lineage doesn't come to Africa. My roots aren't in Africa, but then advocate that they still teach Black history within schools, specifically slavery,
This guy is dumb, man. Any person that bees on a certain, landmass for over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, they had an ethnogenesis, and a new group, was forged on American soil, and that new group became foundational Black Americans. We ain't some continental Africans. You know what I mean? If that be the case, why ain't FBAs got dual citizenship over there? Why are we treated as tourists when we go to the African continent? Why do Africans come over here, and stick to their own little groups and enclaves? Because we different, and it is what it is. We ain't some generic Africans,
the ones that affected the African
FBAs never ran, never fled, never will, unlike your, fleeing culture that you come from.
people that were brought over here. And this is what I mean by they have a lack of logic. They do not think things through. Because, okay, let's say we do go ahead and just allow all of us to just claim this FBA shit, right? And we just delineate from African roots.
Us. He ain't us. You know what I mean? He's a foreign fleeing tether. The hairline shows and tells it all.
And all this other extra shit. Well, why would they teach Black history and slavery in schools, or continue to teach Black history and slavery in school, when we...
And the way they teach Black history in schools, they water it down and sanitize it anyway. You know, what's on us on the FBA grassroots to educate our little FBA children, you know, because we ain't some generic African. You know, you have some brothers and sisters that was, you know, taken from Africa, you know, Africans taken out of Africa, you know, but you have Black Aboriginals that was already on this land. And that's the part of the history that they don't want to tell and work to, you know, whitewash, you know what I mean? And, you know, even so, you know, that being said, you know, even we got, you know, some African genetics and we got some indigenous genetics, but none of that matters because a new culture was formed of resistance, you know, here on American soil was forged on resistance, and that new culture, you know, a new identity and a lineage, that new lineage that formed was foundational Black Americans. There is no denying that, you know what I mean? Everything has an ethnogenesis. You know, every culture, once they, you know, be on a certain landmass for so long, they're going to have an ethnogenesis.
We won't even identify with the history that they're literally taking out or trying to take out. It's you're advocating that they still continue to teach. Like, make the shit make sense. Please, somebody make the shit make sense. Why would they continue to teach African slavery, the transatlantic slave trade? Why would they continue to teach anything about the civil?
Because it's all part of our story, you know, which you're not a part of, you foreign fleeing tether. Two things can exist and ultimately be true. There was, you know, Africans, you know, taken from the continent, you know, and brought over here to America, you know, but you have Black Aboriginals on this land as well. You know, two things can exist and be true. These folks, you know, come in here with the most bad faith arguments, you know, just trying to, you know, throw shit around the room, you know, to see what sticks, you know, but it's undeniable that we got a unique lineage, you know, that was forged over here on American soil, and we're foundational Black Americans. You know, we ain't some generic Africans. As much as people, you know, don't want to accept that, they ain't got no choice but to accept it, because enough of us FBAs are acknowledging our unique lineage now, you know, and that's forcing a new paradigm shift.
Civil rights and Black history, when we as a collective at that point won't even identify with our real identity and our roots that is directly linked to that history. Like, please think things through. If we collectively delineate from Africa and we say, hey, we
already delineated, bro. You got to get over it. You know, crying, whining, and being a sassy punk on the internet ain't going to change nothing. You know, delineation is already, you know, moving and shaking. You know what I mean? We in the middle of a new FBA Black Renaissance right now. You know what I mean? And we've delineated. We got a delineation movement going on now as we speak.
No longer African Americans, then what point would they have in keeping Black history to teach Black history within the school systems? Please use you guys' brains. What are we going to do? Start Black history in schools and teaching it just strictly starting at civil rights movement and moving forward? You know, not give any context, not give any backbone, not give any call.
The context is we had an ethnogenesis. Two things can exist and ultimately be true.
Cause and effect that led to the civil rights movement. Or what do you want them to teach some fake, oh, Black people are indigenous to America bullshit? Like,
And that ain't fake. That's the problem he's having difficulty getting over because he can't find himself in our story. FBAs, got Aboriginal, genetics as well. You know what I mean? And that's something that's undeniable. You know what I mean? Because you had, several, people, historians that documented this, even white people. But let's continue.
Like, make it make sense, guys. Like, literally, please make this whole entire shit make sense. Because I'm genuinely confused on what you guys believe in. You guys want them to continue to teach slavery and black history within schools is directly linked to the African people.
He making an argument that don't even make sense because the way they teach black history in schools, they ain't even teaching our FBA history, true, right, and exact. That's why it's a job, that we gotta, do on a black FBA grassroots to make sure our little FBA brothers and sisters, get the right, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of themselves, because the schools, sanitize it anyway, and whitewash it.
That were brought over here, but you as a black person say that you don't want to identify as African American. Your roots don't trace back to Africa. Like, you cannot make this up, bro. People like FBA are fucking stupid, dude. Like, you guys are literally dumb, and you can't make this up. See what?
He only saying we dumb because he can't find himself in our story. We delineated from him, which forces these foreign fleeing tethers to hold their own nuts. They got no culture that was forged on resistance. The only culture they got is, running around fleeing all over the damn place. They not like us. But let me move on to some more videos, family. Whiny, crying, sassy punk. Yeah, let me add this in here, family, real quick. I forgot to talk about this. This is something I wanted to talk about. No, I'll wait. Never mind. I'll wait because I'm already on the road with this stuff. Knock this stuff out, then I'll come back to it on the back end. Bear with me, family. I got so many videos. It's like I got to find all of them. Now, this is a coon, who's trying to, go at Sistas, because of that rodeo thing. You know what I mean? He's trying to get signal boosted, by the dominant white society and get a pat on the head from white mommy and daddy. And let's get into it. Fair use.
I like to wear my let's talk about the rodeo. See, I like to wear my cowboy hats. And people ask me all the time, you going to the rodeo? You know what I tell them? Hell no. You know why? I don't fuck with the rodeo, and I'm glad I didn't show up to the rodeo event in Houston. I know what happens when you get a bunch of niggas together.
He a coon, on that, I got you, boss. Our house burned down, boss. We got a problem, boss. A massa. I stay away from other black folks, boss. I stay away from other black folks, massa. You don't miss me with that. He just looking for a damn pat on the head from white mommy and daddy. He a damn sellout. You know what I mean? And he don't represent real FBA, brothers and sisters. Damn coon, And we ain't gonna let him call out, our sisters like that and try to denigrate and paint, all of our sisters with the same paintbrush. You know what I mean? Because he'll never in a million years, call out, the damn white supremacists, who go down to New Orleans and, white women is, flashing their titties, getting Mardi Gras beads, going to St. Patrick's Day parades, brawling in the streets. He don't call that out because he looking for a pat on the head.
Negroes, not black people, niggas. Niggas gonna be niggas. You can't go nowhere.
And we call out our people, but we do it from a standpoint of love. You could tell he's framing it in bad faith. He's just trying to get signal boosted by the dominant white society.
With niggas. I heard about you bitches at the rodeo showing your ass, half naked. I heard about you niggas talking shit, wanna fight. You niggas are an embarrassment every fucking where. You niggas can't be on a boat. You niggas start shit on a plane. Now at the fucking rodeo. You niggas are an embarrassment.
A coon got a lot of nerve for saying someone's a damn embarrassment. You know what I mean? You a damn sellout, trying to earn butter biscuits from the dominant white society. So, dude, your punk ass, what you think on the matter don't even matter, in my book and opinion.
And to all you city rats showing your ass at the rodeo, y'all forget. People are bringing their families, their little bitty children. You don't have no fucking shame, no respect for people's families, you bitch. You ignorant niggas need to get it together. I'm ashamed.
Yeah, this is a coon family, you know what I mean? And like I said, some of the sisters that was, dressed provocatively, they shouldn't have been doing that, you know what I mean? Because ain't gonna be do nothing but have the them paint us bad with the same paintbrush, try to generalize that to represent all FBA society. And we ain't gonna let that happen, you know what I mean? Like I said, you got things that go on that ain't good in every society, that ain't limited to us, but you know what I mean? These damn coons and these tethers will never in a million years call out a damn white supremacist for that degeneracy, so it's done in bad faith. I just wanted to show that. We show some more of these videos, family. Bear with me. Another coon we got, speaking that black culture is, negative, this, that, and the other. And we ain't gonna let them get it with that because they saying black culture, they really saying FBA culture, trying to paint that stigma on us. Fair use.
So, the white man made y'all go and fight at the rodeo? Did the white man make y'all dress in all that provocative gear? The white man, the white man, the white man. That's that white man's rodeo. He didn't.
I'm gonna stop you right there. Foundational Black American brothers and sisters were some of the first cowboys, and we had a brother by the name of, FBA brother Bill Pickett. He created, bulldogging, at that, which is wrestling a steer to the ground at the rodeo. So we created the first rodeo. The white supremacists, they just took the damn credit for it, and what he's trying to say is, that all we do is, blame, the white supremacists. We don't take accountability for what goes on in FBA society. We do, but we just do it from a standpoint of love and not trying to get butter biscuits and earn a pat on the head from the damn white supremacists, unlike you damn coon.
Enjoy going to that rodeo for damn near 100 years. And you done showed up and showed out and brought all this negative attention to the rodeo. You're a damn fool if you don't think that they gonna have dress code. You're a damn fool if you don't believe that they are gonna discriminate. And they should discriminate against your ass, because you don't know how to go somewhere and behave. And you want an excuse.
And them saying that black culture is bad, black culture is the most, FBA culture, is the most globally recognized culture. You know what I mean? We stood on resistance, civil rights, we made all the music genres damn near over here in America, so we ain't gonna let you, paint us all with the same paintbrush. Some sisters might have got out there and act unhighly, and they shouldn't be doing that. But, we do it out of a standpoint of love when we check our own. We do it, in the midst of, real FBA brothers and sisters away from the coon class and the tethers, because the damn tethers and the coons is just looking for a pat on the head from white mommy and daddy. You know what I mean?
To act out your body, and when you get caught up in ridicule.
Thanks for the donation. Peace to my brother Black RU 365. Appreciate that, brother.
The first thing you like to do is point the finger and say that it's racism. You want to scream racism and it's the white man's fault. But the white man didn't have you show up and act.
And what this dude probably got is a snow bunny, a Becky he laying with, so he ain't gonna call out white supremacy because in all actuality, he views it as him calling out his white, girlfriend or, whatever, his white spouse or whatever, so he ain't gonna call out white supremacy, never in a million years. But we real FBA brothers and sisters, we call it out. You guys don't, take that damn, same energy, when them white women is down there at New Orleans, for the Mardi Gras showing they titties left and right, and damn near, uh, having intercourse on the street, with people, you don't call it out then, you know what I mean? Why don't y'all call that out? Because y'all looking for a pat on the head from white mommy and daddy. You don't call out all of these damn, white supremacists, brawling out there, for St. Patrick's Day, this, that, and the other. So it's just all done in bad faith, family, to get signal boosted, because they know that in the system of racism, white supremacy, there's signal boost this coon and tether talk.
Ratchet. That's what your black
and white supremacists, they get off on seeing this kind of content. They'll say, yeah, look, there go one of them, that's one of the good ones, you know what I mean? And he's calling them out, and they'll use that as a way to justify, this is why this is so dangerous, because they'll use, a coon like this talking points as a way to, justify, marginalizing FBA brothers and sisters and doing, a bunch of nonsense to us. So we got to call this stuff out.
Black ass decided to do. So I know you're gonna call me a coon,
you are,
but guess what? You're not gonna be.
We ain't just calling you a coon. Your actions speak for themselves. Once you open up your mouth, we see that you're a coon.
Doing next year, going to the rodeo, doing what you want to do, and let this be a.
And he said that because in all actuality, he know that he's cooning. You know what I mean?
Message to everybody that's coming into the city. He's paying attention to what you're doing in the city and gonna put restrictions on that too. We need a facelift in our community. I told you we have the most perverse. The black culture is the most perverse culture in the world. In this spring break, in this.
No, it ain't. Black culture ain't the most perverse, bad, or negative culture in the world. In fact, we got the most positive culture in the world. But the white supremacists want to stick a negative stigma over FBA, culture, because they know that, showing the positiveness, of our unique lineage as foundational Black Americans, that'll bring about, a real change. And we the only real true threat to systematic racism, white supremacy. So they try to demonize us and paint us all with the same paintbrush. We got the best culture, White supremacists ain't got no damn culture. They come from a culture of degeneracy, fleeing, and doing, devilish deeds. You know what I mean? So they ain't got no culture in all actuality. The damn Tethers barely got no culture. They pull out customs and traditions. We the only people as foundational Black Americans with culture, something we do day in and day out that constantly changes. This is why people try to copycat and emulate us,
This rodeo is proving that we can see it. Prove me wrong.
Yeah, that's a damn coon trying to get a pat on the head from white mommy and daddy. So moving right along, I'm gonna show y'all some more videos like regarding the tether class and these coons, trying to come at our FBA sisters over that rodeo thing. Now this is a damn scam African, and he might be of the lineage, but he's a scam African, which means he sees himself as some generic African, and that scam Africanism bag is drying up for him. So, he's trying to frame bad faith arguments to try to, say our FBA lineage is a group with a trademark, and FBA might be trademarked, but Puerto Ricans and everything is trademarked. And as you can see, I'm wearing an FBA t-shirt right now, and Brother Tariq ain't, coming at me or nothing for selling it. You know what I mean? It's just, when people the tether class try to get, the foundational Black American, flag and do some nonsense with it, they asses should be taxed, or when the white supremacists try to get it and exploit it, So I'm glad, Brother Tariq, copyrighted it to where though, these outsiders can't exploit, our FBA imagery, so, and that ain't nothing, saying that, it's trademark, because Puerto Ricans, African American got a gazillion trademarks, and people ain't crying over that. It's just because we got the global culture and they want to, piggyback and, exploit our achievements and success as foundational Black Americans. That's where the problem lies. But let me pull it up, family. Just a second.
Yeah, that's.
Bear with me, family. I'm trying to multitask. Fair use.
That's not true. The term FBA is trademarked. Also, foundational Black American is trademarked. A lineage cannot be trademarked. It's
This damn scam African lying through the skin of his teeth. He just mad that scam Africanism bag is drying up. A lineage can be trademarked, you know what I mean? Puerto Ricans trademark. A bunch of other, lineages trademark, African American, what he wants us to be, generically labeled as, that got a million gazillion trademarks, So he's coming with these bad faith arguments that really don't mean not a damn thing because we ain't going to stop, acknowledging and representing our foundational Black American lineage for anyone or anybody. This is the new norm.
It's like the education level in America is so bad that y'all lose critical thinking skills.
Well, if everything's so bad like that in America, because I got some more videos where he's trying to say bad things about FBA sisters in America. They don't respect FBA men, this, that, and the third. Why don't you take your punk, scam Africanism ass over there to Africa and live, I don't see you doing that. You just whining and crying on the internet, trying to get us real FBA brothers and sisters to view things your way, and it ain't going to happen.
The fact that it's trademarked means someone owns it. You can't own a lineage. I mean,
and our lineage ain't on, you know what I mean? The term foundational Black American being trademarked by our good brother Tariq Nasheed, that's just to ensure that the damn Tethers don't get it into white supremacists and try to exploit our FBA, imagery, regarding our FBA lineage, So, yeah, I would have done the same thing, because if any of the family remembers, African American got a million gazillion, trademarks. And Walmart, through their Great Values brand, try to, put out a Juneteenth ice cream. You know what I mean? People own the trademark to, African Americans and they exploiting it. You know what I mean? But people gave pushback to it, so they didn't put it out. As far as I knew, from me doing my little homework and due diligence. But they tried to, put out a Juneteenth ice cream, which is a bunch of nonsense.
I like foundational Black American. I'm foundational Black American, but you cannot trademark a lineage. It doesn't make sense.
But this dude is a scam African. Keep that in mind, who's trying to frame these bad faith arguments. But moving right along, I still got some videos, about this scam African that I just showed y'all. Let me pull it up, family. Bear with me.
FBA.
Why do these folks keep whining and crying to us like it's going to change something? I don't see why they even wasting their time, putting the effort into even making these damn videos. If you want to go over there to Wakanda and start your, African dynasty, take your punk ass on ahead and go over there and do it, But stop trying to real FBA brothers and sisters in who's standing on lineage business, bro, because this is the new norm from here on out. And ain't a damn thing you or anyone could do about it.
Black Americans, we won't be honest about what's going on. And the truth is, the gender war in America here is way worse, way more personal than the war that's going on between Black.
And ain't no gender war between FBA, real FBA brothers and sisters. You got, some coons and some tethers, in opposition trying to, frame this. But real FBA brothers and sisters, we know that we got to get on code with one another, because when we got our freedom from slavery through resistance, and fighting for the civil rights and things like that, we were moving and shaking on one accord. So we know that it takes, both of us, 50-50, even in relationships, real FBA brothers and sisters, when they in relationships, it's always 50-50, over there on the continent of Africa, they got this thing to where though they want their males to be in a superior position and the women to be in an inferior position. The women got to adhere to, every little demand and, get banged upside the head with a cheetah bone if they don't follow every little rule and demand, out to a T. We don't do that as foundational Black Americans. We operate on one accord, and we stand on lineage business and we fight racism, white supremacy together. And if you, feel so highly of Africa, take your punk ass on over there to Africa.
Americans in the diaspora, that the diaspora war have nothing on the gender war, the 60, 70 years.
ain't no gender war. You got a couple, coons and a couple tethers trying to frame a gender war, and create friction and things like that amongst our FBA lineage. But we spot them, we know they opposition and we call it out. You know what I mean? And the tethers coming over here on the other hand, we really gotta call that out because that's detrimental to, we got them calling for harm being done to real FBA brothers and sisters. We got them getting in political office, undermining reparations like Westmore, and the list goes on, and them saying, we lazy Akatas, and that's very dangerous, you know what I mean?
Gender war that have been going on in America. The divide between the Black American man and the Black American woman is getting worse. Our values don't align anymore. And
if the values don't align and it's so bad over here in America, take your punk ass on over there to Africa, and stay over there. Stop trying to convince us, FBA brothers and sisters that something is going on or something's wrong, because we doing things true, right, and exact as far as now goes. We know we got to operate on one accord. I don't rock with anybody trying to push a gender divide between, FBA brothers and sisters, because we know we got to operate on one accord, and it takes both of us to get our leg up and knock down the system of racism, white supremacy, and do all the things that we're trying to bring about. Get our justice claim in the form of reparations, you name it.
FBA is trying to build a foundation on a broken system.
And we are the foundation. We ain't trying to build no foundation. We are the foundation. We built America up. We are the culture over here in America and the world, so ain't no trying about it, bro. Take your punk ass on over there to Africa if things are so bad here.
We are not we're not ideologically aligned anymore.
This dude is a cornball weirdo who's mad that scam Africanism bag drying up for him.
Black American woman and the Black American men are drifting apart.
Yeah, weirdo, true weirdo. But moving right along, I got some more videos from that weirdo, sassy scam Africanism punk. Let me pull it up, family. Bear with me.
Yeah, that's just not true. The term FBA is trademarked. Also,
everything's trademarked. That's just to ensure that the damn tethers and the white supremacists ain't getting anything regarding our FBA lineage and trying to exploit it. I got an FBA t-shirt on right now, and you could go get you one too, family. All the information is in the description. Brother Tariq Nasheed ain't coming at me for no copyright and this, that, and the other, which he just out here pushing these bad faith talking points to try to get us off this lineage based momentum.
Foundational Black American is trademarked. A lineage cannot be trademarked.
He don't even know what he's talking about. Puerto Rican got a gazillion trademarks. African American got a gazillion trademarks. And that's the bag he want us in, just calling ourselves vague generic Africans, not having no borders so people could come over here and exploit us.
It's like the education level in America is so bad.
Did I talk about that one? Maybe. I got so many videos, family. Pardon me if I did. Let me see. I think I talked about that one. Is this the one I didn't? Maybe I did. I don't think I did. Let me know in the chat, family, if I talked about this one. I think I did. I'm not sure.
That y'all lose critical thinking skills. The fact that it's trademarked means someone owns it. You can't own a lineage. I mean, I like Foundational Black American. I'm Foundational Black American.
Yeah, I think I talked about that one. I think I got two of them. That's what it is. Okay, I downloaded that twice. Yeah, family, I messed up. I showed y'all that to y'all twice. I didn't want to do that. This is the one I wanted. It don't matter. We improvise. When mess ups happen, the show must continue. This is the one I wanted though.
Again, the FBA moved.
See, you keep on trying to frame it as a movement, family, to get a bullseye on the back, you know, to get our lineage targeted and attacked. You know what he's doing. You know, he's framing these bad faith arguments, saying that it's a movement, that it's been trademarked. And Brother Tariq Nasheed was honest about it. You know, he ain't stopping nobody from, you know, who's representing the lineage, you know, in the right way from using, you know, the FBA logo. I got the FBA logo on now, and I'm doing T-shirts, and you know, I don't hear nothing about it. You know, so this is just a bad faith argument. You know, with Brother Tariq Nasheed, you know, is doing that for us, you know, to ensure that, you know, things regarding our FBA lineage ain't being exploited by the white supremacists and the Tethers, you know, but he just mad, like I said, because he got 50 million gazillion videos when I went to his page, you know, trying to, you know, talk unhighly of our FBA lineage and discredit it, but it ain't going to happen, you know. It's the new norm that we represent lineage from here on out.
Movement is a movement. Came from
and just because you say it's a movement 50 million gazillion times don't mean it's a movement, bro. It's a lineage, you know, with different ideologies and mindsets in that lineage, you know what I mean? But one thing, you know, is the norm, you know, and that's us having a unique lineage, you know. Either you born into the lineage or you're not, you know. That don't change, you know, based upon what you think, how you feel. Our lineage is our lineage.
ADOS. So if
and ADOS is a movement, you know what I mean? You could go there on their website and look. They say that they're, you know, an organization. And even Yvette Cornell, when she put out that, you know, BS post trying to discredit our FBA lineage, she said that we trying to be a fake ADOS movement. So she debunked herself. We ain't no movement, you know what I mean? FBA is a lineage, and you know, if we learned anything from the past, it's that having leaders and things like that can be targeted. You know, they targeted a lot of our great FBA leaders, Malcolm, Martin, you name it, Medgar Evers, you know, but letting your lineage be the leader, no one can attack, you know, 44, 45 million plus foundational Black Americans. You let your lineage do the leading. You let your lineage be the code, and you follow that.
If ADOS is not a lineage, then what makes FBA a lineage?
Because Yvette Cornell easily debunked. You know, he got these bad faith talking points. Yvette Cornell said ADOS is a movement. We've always, and Tariq Nasheed has always, you know, specified that FBA is a lineage and he ain't no leader.
Answer that.
Yeah, family, but yeah, these are just, you know, Tethers, Coons, and Ops, you know, coming through with these bad faith arguments, you know, trying to, you know, come at our FBA sisters, you know, because one or two of them might have been dressed unhighly, you know, at the spring break, you know, down there in Houston at the rodeo, this, that, and the other. And we ain't going to let that happen because you got, you know, negative things that go on in every society. We ain't going to let the white supremacists, the Tethers, or the Coon class, you know, try to frame us, you know, all as, having, you know, a degenerate lineage. We ain't gonna let that go on, you know what I mean? We're gonna debunk that quick, fast, and in a hurry. And I got, you know, one more video I want to, you know, talk about with the family and discuss. Having all these damn videos, sometimes they all start running together and I, you know, leave stuff out. So hopefully I got to everything I wanted to get. But this is on a little lighter note because I forgot to do this earlier. But I know the family remembers our FBA brother, you know, Dick Gregory. You know, he stood on a lot of business, you know. And in them interviews with Dick Gregory, I'll go back and watch, you know, whenever our brother Dick Gregory is being interviewed, when somebody interrupts him, I'm trying to tell you, or talks over him, you know, he don't like that. You know, he'll get the, you know, cursing, you know, you shut the hell up. You don't got the knowledge. You know, I got the scholarship, this, that, and the other. And you got this comedian brother who, you know, did a good interpretation of our FBA brother, Dick Gregory. I thought it was a little bit funny. I just wanted to share it with the family.
You shut the fuck up, man. Huh? I'm telling you, you don't even have the information. Huh? Don't tell me I can't yell at you. I can't. Motherfucker, I yell at the most powerful motherfuckers in the universe.
Remember, brother Dick Gregory, he always stood on business. You know, you better not interrupt our FBA brother Dick Gregory. He was going to curse you out and, you know, tell you ain't got the scholarship. Who the hell are you? Don't interrupt me. He was just funny. You know, you got to go back and watch some of brother Dick Gregory's interviews. They were classic. They were hilarious. I just used to watch him over and over just to see, you know, his interaction with the interviewer. Yeah, but yeah, family, I just wanted to share that. And you know, I was on here a little bit longer than what I wanted to be on. I think I got all the videos in. But sometimes, like I said, the stuff just runs together, you know what I mean? Trying to break down all these videos. I might have to start like looking at a better system on doing it, you know what I mean, to make sure I'm getting out everything. But overall it was a good live, you know. We might have messed up on like one or two videos. I might have talked about them twice, but the messaging still got out there. And the messaging is we ain't gonna let anyone or anybody, you know, disrespect our FBA lineage, and representing our FBA lineage is the new wave and the new norm from here on out. You know, and we hear a narrative that the Tethers say, well, you don't call out white supremacists, you a damn lie. We call out the white supremacists and we call out in-house ops and coons as well. You know, but the Tethers ain't gonna be let off the hook because they got some damn melanin in their skin. Damn, that them days is over with. You know, so if you're new to the channel, family, make sure you like and subscribe. And you know, because I'm always putting out, you know, videos of standing on FBA business, you know, regarding our lineage. So make sure you like and subscribe. And yeah, family, like I said, I got these teas on the market, you know, and all the information is in the description. If you want to get some, I got a limited number of them though. So get them while the getting is good, and you know, be safe out there, family, and you know, be aware, because to be aware is to be alive. I'm off of here, family. Peace.